Welcome to the Writers' Rendezvous from the South Dakota Humanities Council.
Hi, I'm Karl Gehrke of South Dakota Public Broadcasting. I'm here at the 2013 South Dakota Festival of Books at the Deadwood Mountain Grand, and my guest is Bob Minzesheimer, the book critic, book reviewer, book reporter for the USA Today. Is that
right?
a good description of what it is?
Basically, my job consists of doing three things. One is reviewing books, then secondly, interviewing authors, writing feature stories about them, and thirdly, writing a bit about the publishing industry and what's going on in the world of the business of books.
Now that's an interesting thing to be writing about right
Yes.
now. It's are we in transition or are we past that transition?
No, we're
in the middle of it.
We're in the middle of the big digital transition that's affecting a lot of industries. It's probably not affecting books as much as it's affecting, say, newspapers, but it's affecting books. More and more people are reading ebooks, using e-readers, reading on tablets. What exactly this means for publishing and authors is not exactly clear. I think for the most part, so far, it's been good for readers, good for authors, not so good for bookstores, because it is, if you're just downloading a book, a lot of people don't feel the need to go to a bookstore, and that has some implications for the industry.
What are some of those implications?
Well, publishers have always looked on their customers as sort of the bookstores, not the people buying the books, because the publishers, through distributors, ship books to the bookstores, and that's their showcase. That's how, traditionally, how people have found books, especially not so well-known authors. The number of bookstores has obviously gone down. Borders, the second largest chain, went out of business 2 years ago. Barnes & Noble has had its financial problems have more to do with its digital device, the Nook, than it does with its physical bookstores. But the big looming presence is Amazon, which sells online books, has also become a publisher recently, and has made the Kindle, which has transformed the way, maybe I would say it's probably around a third of readers now report using e-readers or tablets to read. And that's growing. And it's also, that third tends to be younger than the 2/3 that it still favor physical books. Now, there are a lot of people who read, it's not an either or. You could even start a book as an ebook and then, finish it as a physical book, or if you really like it as an ebook, you may want to buy it and have it on your shelf. The reading experience, I think the reading experience is different. It's not like music where it really doesn't, the sound is the same whether you're listening to a CD or an MP3 or whatever. To me, reading something on a printed page is a slightly different experience than reading on a screen. But nobody knows exactly where we're going. Publishers obviously like ebooks, because they're cheaper to make. You don't have to print them, you don't have to use paper, you don't have to put them in trucks and get them to stores. You don't have this thing called returns. There's this odd thing in the book business where if a bookstore orders a book from a publisher, it can, and does not sell it, it can return the book to the publisher and get its money back. And it's a thing that sort of started during the Depression as a way of keeping bookstores alive and never went away. And publishers hate it because the orders aren't the same as sales, obviously. I don't think that's true in the clothing industry or the toy industry or anything else that you can return, stores can return material to the producer of the store.
And this is where the remaindered books
and you're right, and often, and so if the store could either remain it or the publisher could remain it. I guess this gets kind of technical, but there is this thing where I think a publisher will say this book is no longer, I'm not sure what the term is.
In print.
In print, yeah. There's, I don't know if being out of print is the same as being remanded. And obviously the price goes down. But anyway, but in ebooks, you don't have any of those problems. So anyway, there's that thing. It has also allowed a lot of self-published authors who choose for a variety of reasons to publish books themselves, and it's a lot easier to do that digitally. So you have some books only appear as ebooks. and they sell them for $3.99, $2.99, 99 cents, and they then gain a readership. And sometimes there's a few people out of thousands and thousands who become successful doing that. And then a publisher, a quote real publisher, will sign them up, and the person has built a following through basically just online. So all of that was not possible 10 years ago or even 5 years ago.
Well, when we talk about the changes in publishing and the way we're reading books, oftentimes the question seems to be, is this good or bad? But I would guess that it's probably neither, a little bit of both. It's just different.
It's different. The choice for readers has probably never been greater. The advent of being able to order a book online, a physical, just think about getting a physical book. You no longer need to live near a bookstore, and you can have that book within a day or two. And downloading books, you can have it in a few seconds. 25 years ago, even though there were more bookstores, a lot of people did not live near a bookstore, and it was more of a luxury. So the access, and also the range of books. I mean, Amazon and Barnes & Noble online have millions and millions of titles. You know, even the biggest superstore bookstore probably has maybe 100,000 titles. So the choice has never been greater. Now, some people would say the great skill of a good bookseller is to direct the reader to something he or she is interested in, and the online choice can sometimes seem overwhelming.
The frustration, I remember sometimes going to bookstores, if I had an idea of what book I wanted going there and it wasn't there, that's gone now with Amazon. But what is missing is that going into bookstores and just finding something that you never thought you would read, or maybe you talk about the remainder table. Oh, I'll take a chance with this. It's only $3.
Right.
You miss that
There
discovery.
Discovery is the key word. In publishing, the key word is discoverability, and it's how do readers find out about books they may like. And I think most publishers will admit they're really not sure that happens. I mean, the biggest thing is word of mouth recommendations, where one person tells another person, I like this book. It's probably more important than anything I write or any critic writes. Probably more important than all those Amazon reviews from readers, because you don't know who those people are. They all could be the uncles and aunts of the author. But the other thing I haven't mentioned is the volume of books. Each year, more and more books are published. So, it's, depending on how you define a book, it's well over 100,000 books are published a year. Wow. So no one can keep track of books. It's not like movies. I sort of envy my colleagues who are movie reviewers, because basically they will review every nationally distributed movie, which would be maybe 2 or 3 a weekend. So and there are a lot of independent movies that wouldn't fall in that category. In books, there's no way you could even begin to do that. So the choices can be overwhelming.
I imagine that you probably get piles and piles of books, and it's probably hard as a critic to decide which one.
There's hard and then there's hard. It's not, but it's very arbitrary. You have to make a choice, and how you make the choice isn't always the best thing. I try to occasionally just pick up some book that looks interesting, even if I've never heard of the author, and read the first 4 or 5 pages. I have occasionally discovered books that way. Doesn't happen enough because my editor wants us to review, for all the good reasons, the new Stephen King or the new Bill O'Reilly, the names. And there is a sense that, and I think you could actually prove this, that a certain number of authors just have these locks on the bestseller list. So it's tough to break into that if you're an unknown author. Now, occasionally someone like E.L. James, who no one heard of 2 years ago, comes along and sells millions of books. And once upon a time, nobody had heard of J.K. Rowling. So it is possible.
Well, Bob, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Well, great questions, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being in Deadwood.
Writers Rendezvous is a production of SDPB.